This is the video solutions of the take-home quiz. This is a great tool to help prepare you for the midterm. In fact, if I was preparing for the midterm, I would probably rewatch all the videos that I've made on different worksheets. So I'd go through the worksheets and watch the videos and make sure I understand the concepts behind, even if you're able to get the worksheets right the first time. Just to watch the video and listen to my explanations of the concepts. That would be a great way to prepare for the midterm. So here's the take-home quiz. It's all been turned in by you all, and for the most part you've been graded. So for a lot of you in grading your take-home quiz, instead of, because I couldn't write on the quiz, I just made a note in the comments about which question you got wrong, and so the intention was for you to come here and watch this and figure out why it's wrong. Because I couldn't give you good feedback on there. Okay, so first of all, draw on the same axis the graph. So here's a picture of f of x. Describes it up here. Use this graph of x to answer the following. So this is f of x, this drawing. And what I want to do is draw a picture of g of x, which is, you can see some transformations done to f of x. So if we make a list real quick, it looks like we are... so there is a vertical stretch. Oh, I'm going to need to make that smaller. There is a vertical stretch by 2 because of that. There is a shift right 2 and up 1. That gives me the shift right, and that gives me the shift up. So what I'm going to do is take each point and apply those things to it. So vertical stretch of 2, that would make this go down to 2 because it's 1 away, so twice as far away to make it 2 away. Then I'm going to move it to the right 1, 2, and back up, so I end up right there. So to do the same thing with this one, this is sitting at 2, so multiply it by 2. A vertical stretch of 2 means multiply the y-coordinate by 2, so I take it up to here. Then I move to the right 2, 1, 2, and up 1. So you're right there. And once I get those 2 endpoints, I can just connect the dots. Then do the same thing with C. Notice C is at 0, 0. So the vertical stretch of 2 is not going to affect that, because if it's 0 away from the x-axis, multiply it by 2, 2 times as far from the x-axis is still 0. So it's only going to be shifted right 2 and up 1. So I would sit right there, and this goes down like that. Okay. Likewise, if this is stretched by a factor vertically by a factor 2, go to 2 and then go over 2 up 1. So that would sit right there, open circle. This one is not affected by the vertical stretch because it's sitting on the x-axis. So it only move over to the right 2 and up 1. And again, that's open circle. So then I connect the dots. And that would be the graph. Okay, give the intercepts of f. Now this is intercepts of f of x, so I'm going back to the original function. So just so we don't confuse ourselves, I'm going to erase this so I don't look at that anymore. But you'll see it in the video. So just looking for where it crossed the x and y axis. So it does cross right there. So that would be the point -3, 0. So that would be an intercept. Also hits right there. That would be the point 0, 0. So that's both an x and y intercept. This is on the x-axis, the y-axis, that's on the x-axis, but they don't count because, as it says up here, A, D, and G are open circles. So an open circle can't be an x-intercept. So those would be my only intercepts. 2 x-intercepts, 1 y-intercept. This is an x and a y and the same thing. Okay, give the intervals over which f of x is increasing. So we're looking for intervals of x where the y values are getting larger. So as I go from -4 to -1, the y's get larger as I go from left to right. So that would be written like this, -4 to -1. I'm writing in interval notation. So all the x values between -4 and -1 produce increasing y values as I go from left to right. But notice over here the same thing is happening, so I'd also put a little union here. I'm going from 0 to 2. So if I go from here, from here to there, my y's are increasing. So I'd be from 0 to 2. Okay, this says find f of -1, so that means I'm plugging in -1 as an x-coordinate. What do I get out? Looks like I get out 2 for a y-coordinate. Likewise, it says when f of x is 2, what is x? Well, we just did that, so that means x must be -1. Okay, moving right along. Pick your 2 favorite parent functions and give the domain. So I'll just do a couple here. For example, y equals x squared. The domain would be all real numbers. Y equals x cubed. The domain would be all real numbers. So a lot of them are all real numbers. The ones that are not all real numbers would be y equals square root of x, because that's just from 0 to infinity. And y equals 1 over x. And y equals 1 over x squared. Those would both be from -infinity to 0, union 0 to infinity. So in other words, everything but 0. So there's a couple examples. List a parent function that is increasing over its entire domain. That would be y equals x for sure, y equals square root of x, y equals the cube root of x. Those are all definitely increasing over the entire domain. List a parent function that has a discontinuity. That would be y equals 1 over x, y equals 1 over x squared, and the ceiling function. This is just to name a few. That actually might be all of them there. That's a parent function that is odd. You could have said y equals x cubed, or y equals x, or y equals 1 over x. Those are all odd functions. Remember, odd function means that it looks like, for example, x cubed. If I were to rotate it about the origin, in other words, spin it, this piece here would end up down here. And the yellow thing, oops, the yellow side would end up where the pink side is. So that means that it's odd. Okay, moving right along to number 6. For the following functions, state the parent function. So the parent function of this is y equals square root of x. You, of course, could put f of x equals square root of x. That's fine. What is done to it? So the 2, that produces a vertical stretch. You have to say vertical there, otherwise I don't know whether it's a vertical or horizontal. So vertical stretch by 2, and you have to include 2 so we know how far it's been stretched. And there's a shift to the right. You have to say to the right or to the left. In this case, to the right. Shift to the right 3. The parent function here is y equals 1 over x squared. And it has a reflection across. So it's on the outside, so I'd reflect across the y-axis. Sorry, across the x-axis. Because we know if it's on the outside, the y's are going to be affected. And there's also a 2 up there. We've got to figure out what that 2 does. So that 2 is a vertical reflection. I'm sorry, vertical stretch by 2. This is y equals absolute value of x. And it also has a reflection across it's on the outside, so that'd be across the x-axis. And it has a vertical stretch by 2, and it shift to the left 3. This one's parent function is x cubed, and it has a stretch vertical stretch by 1/2, and it's shifted right 1. Write equation with the following descriptions. So this starts out with y equals x squared, so I'm going to go y equals something squared, shifted to the right 3, and stretched vertically by a factor 3. So that means I'm going to do an x minus 3 in here, and a plus 3 out there. Notice you got to include the square because that tells me that it's the right parent function. Okay, this one here, I'm going to take y equals something over something, or horizontally stretched by a factor of 4. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my 1 up there for now. Horizontal stretch by a factor of 4, reflected across the y-axis and shifted up 5. So the plus 5 will definitely go out there because that's on the outside. Now what I need to do though on the inside is I need to put a negative and a 1/4. Because if I'm, remember there's a reciprocal effect on the inside. So if I'm shifting it 4 times as far as away, that means I need to put a 1/4 on the inside. So you could do like a negative x over 4. That's an option. But a lot of you realize that if I have an x over 4, I have a complex fraction, a fraction within a fraction. So algebraically, I could write this as negative 4 over x plus 5. Same thing. Either one of those would be okay in this case. Finally, we have a square root. So that'd be y equals, and it looks like it reflected across the x-axis. So that'd be a negative on the outside. Shifted to the left 3 and shifted up 6. So I'm going to go ahead and put my square root. Shift to the left 3, that'd be x plus 3. Close the barn door. And shift it up 6, so that'd be a plus 6 on the outside. Because it's shifting up, which means affecting the y, so it'd be on the outside. And that is the take-home quiz. So remember you got your midterm. Make sure you remember what time you signed up for. And please email me, come by with questions. You want to make sure you go into this midterm prepared because it's a hefty part of your grade. All right.